Welcome to my channel. My name is the Queen Bee, and on this channel I will talk about murders, unsolved cases, and mysterious disappearances in Italy. I am an Italian girl who wants to make you participate in the crimes of Italian history. I realized during my travels around the world that Italy is very underestimated, and I decided to make a change, telling you about our multiple crimes. Today, we will talk about a mystery that divided Italy in two, between those who are guilty and those who are innocent. The mystery of Via Monaci. The mystery of Via Monaci, also known as the Fenaroli case, was the name given by the press to the murder committed on 10 September 1958 in Rome in an apartment in Via Ernesto Monaci number 21, near Piazza Bologna in Nomentano district. The case received widespread media coverage, so much so that over 20,000 people waited an entire night in front of the court for the sentence to be pronounced, profoundly impacting Italy's society of the period. History. On the morning of September 11, 1958, Maria Teresa Viti, the maid who works in the apartment of Mrs. Maria Martirano in Fenaroli, born in 1911, in Via Monaci in Rome, rings the doorbell, but, contrary to usual, the landlady doesn't come to open the door. The maid asked the doorman and the lady's brother for help, but only the intervention of a neighbor who entered the apartment from the kitchen window allows Maria Martirano's body to be discovered, lying in the kitchen. The woman, as will be discovered later, died for strangulation. The theory of theft, realistic at first glance due to the absence of 400,000 lire in cash and jewelry, was later discarded as the murderer ignored a large sum in the wardrobe of her husband's room. The investigations. The investigations, conducted by the Flying Squad in the person of Ugo Macera in collaboration with Nicola Chiré, managed to deduce the time of the murder between 11:30 p.m. and midnight. Among the suspects is her husband, the surveyor Giovanni Fenaroli, owner of the Fenaroli Impresa company, who lives in Milan, where he deals with construction. The motive could have been the possibility of collecting a policy taken out on his wife's life, worth 150 million of lire. Furthermore, it was later discovered that the signature of the clause providing for violent death had been forged. The husband's alibi seems to hold up because at the time of the murder he was in the office in Milan with the accountant Egidio Sacchi, director of Fenaroli Impresa. The investigators, however, followed the trail of the murder committed through a hitman, and 2 months later they get to the bottom of the mystery. The accountant Sacchi confesses to having been present at the phone call with which Fenaroli, shortly before the murder, communicated to his wife that a certain Raul Giani, born in 1931, would pass by to deliver some documents. He was a young and good-looking electrotechnical worker who was compensed with 1 million of lire for the crime. Raul Giani. According to the investigations, it was discovered that Fenaroli had met Giani thanks to the latter's friendship with a certain Carlo Insolia, brother of Amalia Insolia, a woman with whom Fenaroli had had a relationship 10 years earlier. This woman had a daughter, Donatella, who was adopted by Fenaroli and who, when she was orphaned in 1957, went to live with her uncle Carlo Insolia. The evening before the discovery of Martirano's body in Rome, Gianni would have left work at the factory around 6:30 p.m. and would have been taken by car to Malpensa Airport, where he would have left to Ciampino with a one-way ticket to name Rossi. Having then immediately gone to Via Monaci, a phone call from her husband, with which the victim was apparently convinced to open the door to Gianni with the pretext that he had to collect confidential and important documents would be preceded him, he would have committed the crime and therefore he would return to Milan in a sleeper car, arriving just in time to clock in at the company where he worked on September 11th. Gianni was 27 years old, the son of a ticket collector for the tram company, and lived in Milan with his mother Clotilde Guatteri, his brother Luciano, and his sister Lia. His father had gone to live alone because he could no longer stand the three children, all three adults and employees, with a mentality and attitude that he, a pre-war man, could not understand. Gianni often went out in the evening, obviously when he wasn't traveling for work, and frequented the usual bar, where for years he spent the evening playing cards, billiards and chatting, and on certain days of the week he frequented some dance halls. These consolidated habits did not help him in presenting an alibi. None of his regular friends could remember whether or not he was with them on the evening of 10 September 1958. Gianni was arrested because he was recognized by a woman, Reana Trentini, as the visitor received the evening by the victim, as well as by a passenger of the train with which he would return to Milan. Furthermore, it was discovered that there had been an attempt the previous evening which had failed and the train tickets for that occasion had been purchased on his name. The police then demonstrated that he left the factory at 6:30 p.m. and could have arrived at the airport, and Alitalia confirmed that a Mr. Rossi was boarded at the last minute, and according to Sacchi's testimony, Rossi was Raul Gianni. The process. The Fenaroli case, which landed in the courtrooms, enthralled Italy, divided it into guilt seekers and innocent seekers, and it was the first time in Italy that the public dedicated its attention and passion to a case of cold murder, and with determination and planning that have been studied and implemented for a long time down to the smallest detail on the basis of car routes, plane and train timetables that are crucial for the success of the operation, that any mix-up, not entirely unlikely, in the sequence of the various movements of the murderer he could have screwed up. According to the prosecution, the mind who studied all this was a surveyor, an entrepreneur on the road to bankruptcy, who, due to his meticulousness in planning the crime, navigating the pitfalls of failure to respect scheduled timetables with absolute precision and with slim margins, was also called the station master of death. In an article, Indro Montanelli said he was convinced that money and profit had never been Fenaroli's true goals, and hypothesized that probably he traded for Martirano was burying his body the day in which, as sooner or later happens to everyone's husbands, he realized that she saw him as he was and not as he tried to appear, an ordinary poor man. Carlo Insolia. On 11 June 1961, the Court of Assizes in Rome, with the decisive testimony of the accountant Sacchi, sentences Fenaroli and Gianni to life imprisonment, while Carlo Insolia was acquitted due to insufficient evidence. 20,000 people outside the court awaited the sentence until 5 in the morning. On 27 July 1963, the Court of Assizes of Appeal of Rome confirmed the life sentences for Gianni and Fenaroli, while Carlo Insolia was sentenced to 13 years in prison for complicity. Giovanni Fenaroli died in prison in 1975. Gianni received a pardon in 1983, while Carlo Insolia obtained conditional freedom in 1970. Subsequent journalistic investigations. Many years later, the case was studied again, because there was thought of a possible revenge against Fenaroli carried out by Italcasse to free himself from possible blackmail. In that investigation, conducted by the journalist Antonio Padellaro, it was also shown that the economic situation of the suspects was not as disastrous as previously thought. The fact that Fenaroli had never tried to collect the compensation provided for by the policy for which he would have ordered the murder, also aroused suspicion. Furthermore, the evidence against Ghiani appeared very suspicious in those laboratory in the company for which he worked a year after the crime, and after numerous searches had already been carried out, the stolen jewels were found. Cultural influence. The Fenaroli case inspired the screenplay of the film The Widower Shot by Dino Risi in 1959 with Alberto Sordi, an unsuccessful industrialist who tries to kill his wife Elvira Almiraghi, played by Franca Valeri, to inherit her assets. For the TV series The Great Trials, directed by Sandro Curzi, a film was made directed by Giampaolo Tescari. Giovanni Fenaroli was played by Franco Castellano. The series Il Giallo e il Nero, broadcast on Rai 3 in 2013, dedicated an episode to the case. A theatre show was based on the story Il caso Fenaroli. Everything You See Can Be False by Fabio Santivale, produced by Florian TSI in 2027, and created taking into account new investigation carried out and testimonies collected. Remember to subscribe, leave a like, comment, and follow the Queen Bee on TikTok. See you next week with another episode.